asked about getting a lockbox for home storage. Really makes me wonder what Jade's telling herself right now in that holding cell while her family picks up the pieces of her mess. The way she just ran when the sirens came says everything about how much planning really went into this whole scheme. Discharge planning began after lunch. The case manager discussed follow-up appointments, emergency protocols, and safety planning. She mentioned that Jade wouldn't be allowed near me once released on bail, that a restraining order was already in process. The words felt surreal, like we were discussing a stranger instead of my sister. Mrs. Beaufort returned that afternoon with homemade soup. She'd been cooking all morning, she said, needing something to do with her hands. She sat with Mom while I sipped the broth, the two women finding comfort in shared silence. Before leaving, she pressed a spare key into Mom's hand, insisting we keep it for emergencies. The insurance coordinator arrived with paperwork. The destroyed insulin would be covered under our policy's emergency replacement clause. She walked us through the forms, explaining coverage for the hospital stay and follow-up care. Dad asked about counseling coverage, his voice carefully neutral. My regular insulin pump needed replacing after the trauma. The diabetes educator brought a new one, going through the setup process methodically. My hands shook as I primed the tubing, muscle memory warring with fresh trauma. She was patient, letting me work through each step at my own pace. Evening brought more visitors. My aunt arrived from 2 states away, having driven all day after Mom's call. She hugged me carefully, mindful of the IV, then turned to my parents with less gentleness. I heard heated whispers in the hallway, accusations about enabling Jade, about ignoring warning signs. The night shift arrived again, different nurses this time, but the same routine of blood sugar checks and vital signs. I slept better, exhaustion finally overwhelming anxiety. The nightmares were still there, but less vivid, my mind beginning to process the trauma into manageable pieces. The second morning brought discharge papers. Dr. Rollin did a final examination, pronouncing me stable enough for home care. She adjusted my insulin ratios again, accounting for the stress hormones still flooding my system. She scheduled follow-up appointments for the next week, wanting to monitor my recovery closely. The discharge nurse went through a lengthy checklist. Medications verified, follow-up appointments confirmed, emergency contact numbers updated. She had me demonstrate drawing up insulin and checking my blood sugar. Standard protocol, but suddenly weighted with new meaning. Mom watched every movement, as if memorizing the procedures herself. Dad had brought fresh clothes from home. Getting dressed felt strange after 2 days in a hospital gown. My jeans hung loose, the dehydration having stripped away water weight. The simple act of tying my shoes left me breathless, my body still recovering from its ordeal. The wheelchair ride to the exit was mandatory. Hospital policy regardless of my protests. Dad pulled the car around while Mom gathered the accumulated belongings. Flowers from relatives, get-well cards from neighbors who'd heard the news, the untouched pamphlets about family counseling. The drive home was silent except for the radio playing softly. I sat in the back seat, watching familiar streets pass by. Everything looked the same but felt different, like returning to a foreign country. Mom kept turning to check on me, her seatbelt straining with each movement. Our house looked exactly as we'd left it 3 days ago. The Black Friday sale papers still sat on the kitchen table. Jade's coffee mug stood in the sink, unwashed. The normalcy felt obscene after everything that had happened. Dad immediately began gathering Jade's belongings from common areas, stuffing them into boxes. I stood in the kitchen doorway, unable to enter. The broken glass had been cleaned up, the insulin residue mopped away, but I could still see it all. The counter where I'd gripped for support, the sink where I'd vomited, the spot where I'd collapsed. Mom gently guided me to the living room instead. The lockbox arrived by delivery that afternoon. Dad installed it in my bedroom closet immediately, adding a combination lock for extra security. We loaded my insulin supply inside, counting each vial twice. He gave me the combination, made me practice opening it several times. Mom wrote it down and hid the paper in her jewelry box. My bedroom felt like a sanctuary and a prison simultaneously. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, but Jade's presence lingered. I found one of my old glucose meters in my desk drawer, one she must have missed during her search. The discovery made me shake uncontrollably until Mom held me steady. Dinner was takeout, nobody feeling up to cooking. We ate in the living room, abandoning the dining table where so many family dramas had unfolded. The food tasted like cardboard, but I forced it down, knowing my blood sugar needed the stability. Dad obsessively checked the nutrition information, calculating carbs with